and even cause instant change to some of these things. So what seems to be the cause of the deteriorating economy? Let's start with that.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me correct that statement and assumption that members of parliament have fuel cards and so they don't feel the price. We do not have those priorities, those privileges. So we buy our own fuel. From here to Shema, I used to put in full tank in my car, about 300,000. Now I put in about 420. So we have also felt the pinch. And the factors are there, they are known. This is not a Ugandan problem, as a matter of fact, when it comes to fuel, like I've mentioned in several forums. The prices in Uganda are as a result of factors which are largely external, not only to Uganda. I just want to put it in context that the average world price of petrol is 4,817 shillings. And Uganda, of course, is above the average, as you have mentioned. And that's a very big concern. But we are not the only country on the continent that are actually above the average. The others are even worse off, apart from the oil-producing countries. We all know that Uganda is a net importer of fuel. And globally, I was checking some reports this morning. The crude price has now, as at yesterday, was trading at $106 per barrel. This is way above what the price was this time last year. So there is no doubt we saw a dramatic, well, not a dramatic, but a steady increase of the global crude prices in the last 1 year, in the last 12 months. And then as soon as we are experiencing that, then we got this problem in Ukraine and Russia. People must know that Russia is one of the big producers of oil. And when there is a war, definitely the impact is felt here. So the problem of fuel started way before Russia. Russia, Ukrainian war increased the situation, but also there was an issue of the increased shipping costs. You know, during COVID, there was suppressed production globally. People are not working. Some factories were not producing up to capacity because of some were closed, others were working at minimal, staff, and therefore, and also the demand was suppressed. Now, when globally economies started easing lockdown, people went back into production. People went back to work. And therefore, there was a sudden surge of demand. And that surge of demand was realized in the demand for shipping containers globally. Actually, if Ugandans who import here know that, whereas it used to take about 3 weeks to bring goods from China, way back, now it's almost taking 2 months. It's taking 2 months. And also given the fact that China is still grappling with the COVID-19 directly, it has affected the flow of commerce. And actually the shipping costs moved. In 2020, was a container from China was about 2,850. And now it is around 7,000. Plus, during the last few, still within the especially Asian area, the controls at the various ports related to COVID, etc., all those factors did increase the cost of transportation globally. So the increase in global prices of crude, plus the increase in increased cost, then you have now the situation in Eastern Europe, which if it continues and if there are sanctions against the Russian oil, then you are likely to see a shift in the demand by Europeans looking for oil in other markets where we are also getting, and all that will increase the demand, and when the demand is high, supply is limited, then the result is more and more increases in prices. So you can talk about the various products. Now, there are other products like crude palm oil, which we largely import from Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Crude palm oil, when there was suppressed production in those countries, when they started producing, the demand for their own consumption went up. And therefore, countries like Indonesia have restricted actually the amount of crude that goes out.
They export to other countries, okay.
And we saw...
but in line with the palm oil that you're talking about here, just in Kalangala here, we have a palm oil plant that can be able to use this opportunity through your parliament to actually boost its production to be able to supply not only Uganda but also the region.
You know, this is a very good question. And I think it is a question that government should face squarely, because it goes into our import substitution strategies. How sustainable are they? Because when we started Kalangala, the whole idea was that we are going to reduce the importation of reliability on imported crude. But it's not been good enough. Either, you know, the companies involved here, in my opinion, have preferred to import than investing, because, you know, it's much cheaper to import, bring, and start producing. So government has to put in incentives that attract investment here, but also government must invest in the domestic oil production, not only the crude palm oil, but if you look at sunflower, it's a very big potential, especially in the northern region. And the success stories are not far from us. Tanzania here, if you go to Tanzania during the high peak season of sunflower production, they are actually producing a lot of oil internally. So as much as they are importing, they have a lot of local production. And that explains why the price of cooking oil here in Uganda, why it has risen by about 73%. In Tanzania, it has risen to around 33%. So the impact is not the same, simply because they are focused on value addition and productivity. And we can do it here. I am convinced we can do it. It's important government looks at it as priority, especially as we go into the budgeting, avail farmers seeds, avail the best practices. Let's revive the factories in Lango sub-region, in northern region, and also boost the production in Kalangala. Then you will have reduced the reliability of imported crude.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. But again, in the presence of the current market prices, especially for energy and food, as a member of parliament, are you not angered enough to actually step on the floor and make some deliberate decisions to save Ugandans from this burden in the meantime?
We have, what we did as members of parliament was, first of all, to demand government to come out and tell the Ugandans, because you see, executive responsible for the welfare of Ugandans. So there has to be an explanation to the people, either to tighten their belts or to adjust their lifestyle by informing them. Because these are things which we have to face squarely. If government cannot intervene, then you prepare the people. The crude palm oil rose from $550 per metric ton to $2,000 per metric ton this year. That's a very huge increase. There is no way you'd expect cooking oil not to go up. So we have demanded government come out with intervention. They presented a statement on the floor of parliament. I think the first one, which was presented by the minister, was not convincing. We rejected it.
And what was the statement?
And It was not very clear on facts and clear interventions.
What were they trying to address in that particular first presentation?
Of course, giving the overall. But you see here, what you're going to need to know is the commodities that are attached, the 10, let me say, if you have a basket of commodities for a common man that are consumed daily, bread, salt, sugar, cooking oil, soap, and the consumer price index, has risen by over 1 point. What does it mean for a person who has been earning 100,000 and is able to buy the basket of those 8 products at 60,000, at 40,000, and now he has to pay 60,000? It means a lot. So we expect government to look at the fiscal space. Are there ways that they can intervene from a fiscal point of view? There have been a lot of calls by the public. You reduce tax on this, you put subsidies. So, I don't believe in subsidies, but particularly it has not worked in Kenya when government tried to subsidize fuel.
It's being applied in Rwanda?
Yes, but the reduction is not, if you look at the palm prices, it's almost the same. I also don't believe in suppressing taxation very, very quickly without looking at the implications on the economy and the budget. But there is a room for something that can be done. You could look at, for example, for fuel, look at the cost drivers. If you interact with the fuel marketing companies, if you need them to bring in bulk fuel under bond, store it, then reduce the cost of upfront payment and pay perhaps after, that could result into reduction in the operating costs, and hence it could result in the price reduction. You could look at the issues of transportation, maybe encouraging some of them to use the lake, subsidize maybe transportation, look at the southern corridor through Mombasa, I mean Dar es Salaam. Of course, it calls upon us now to look at our railway seriously. Parliament appropriated money for wagons, but I think
which wagons never came through. When we had the COMESA assessing that particular discussion, you were having old wagons still being used and applied instead of buying up-to-date wagons.
Yeah, so those are questions we have been asking government, and that's why we rejected the first statement that it's not properly researched. It's not assuring us what can be done.
Okay.
First of all, before you intervene, you see, when you have a situation of rising commodity prices like fuel, the first priority, that the first risk that the government must avoid and address is scarcity. Because when there is scarcity, then it will expound the problem. So, and scarcity can be as a result of, disruptions in the supply chain, the issues of operating capital, but it could also, as a result of it could be an artificial scarcity created by hoarding. So some of these things have to be examined. Now, Ugandans are crying of high prices of petrol, but supposing you wake up and you find that there is no petrol. Okay. Someone will keep it and say, I'm selling it at 10,000. The situation becomes worse. So
the situation is worse. Not that it becomes worse. We can't wait for it to become any worse. But we're looking at the correlation of commodities to inflation and the current state of things in the country right now. We're going to be taking a short break. We're going to be joined by another discussant for more of these conversations on our Kickstarter. Please do stay with us.
Watching Morning at NTV.
NEMA, in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, is inviting the general public to the NTV live talk show scheduled to take place on Monday, 23rd April 2022 between 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. The talk show will address issues pertaining to sound management of chemicals and waste in Uganda. Chemicals are integral to our everyday life and are used in health, agriculture, industry, and consumer products. Every day, we are exposed to chemicals that can be harmful to human health and environment. From pharmaceuticals and plant protection products to textiles, cosmetics, cleaning products, among others. While these chemicals have contributed improvement of human health, food security, productivity, and quality of life, they can pose risks to human health and environment. Join efforts with NEMA's Executive Director, Dr. Barirega Akangwasa, in his roadmap towards ensuring sound management of chemicals and waste in Uganda.
On the next episode
Is brought to you by Rock Boom. Feel the positive energy.
On the next episode.
And without fearing that he will reject her. Well,
Rock Boom, now in a new bottle with the same taste and same positive energy. Rock Boom. Feel the positive energy.
He saw something that day. He began to work day and night. He wouldn't quit, even when people said no. He made it possible to receive quality medical services anywhere in Uganda by simply using a phone.
UG needs more of you. To share your story, visit ugneedsmoreofyou.com. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Amanya gange nze Rebecca Kigozi nafuna accidenti nali nva ku church emmotoka bwe yajja nesika nentomeza ennyumba nenteeka wansi w'emipiira kati abaali bataasa nnyumba kati so emmotoka eno yali ekutte okugulu kwange nekunyiga emulago eyo namalayo emyezi 3 era nagenda okuva emulago ng'okugulu bakugjeeko naye nkubiriza bonna badriver abali eyo tonywa n'ovuga bw'oba onywedde beerako n'omuntu omulala mu mmotoka ajja okuvuga tweddeko. Every life matters.
This message was brought to you by Viva Energy and NTV Uganda.
A minute to the top of the hour, 8 a.m. Kickstarter for you here in Morning at NTV. My name is Priscilla Regina Naluoga, having the discussions that have been perturbing Ugandans since the year opened, 2022, when we were given freedom to enjoy a fully reopened economy. However, we are feeling the pinch of that fully reopened economy with the grappling prices going higher and higher every single day. Looking at energy prices, food commodities, among others, household commodities, also inclusive on that list. And we've been having this conversation with Dixon Katashumbo, Member of Parliament, Shema Municipality, has called it the commodity basket. Those 10 essentials that every person gets to buy on a daily, and how they're actually being affected by what's happening within the country. And also we're going to be talking about later on the coffee deal versus the hospital in Luwa that is not yet complete, and yet we're having the Ministry of Finance asking for another 300+ billion Ugandan shillings towards those works, as well as the succession politics of this country. Even if we've just started another presidential term, we get to see some things that are cropping up that could give us indicators of the succession politics in this country. Joining us for this conversation is Hassan Caps Fungaro, former Member of Parliament of Bongi County. Good morning to you.
Thank you. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you very much. And good morning, my colleague. I salute you, my dear viewers who have tuned in to this program.
Okay, first of all, how are you finding the fuel prices? Are you still using the AC, or do you have to put the windows down now?
The fuel prices are really biting hard, and it affects people. Everyone is affected, whichever level of society do live at, directly either by you fueling your car or by you going to the market to buy any commodity. Commodity prices rise as a result of the additional costs incurred by business people in lieu of transporting goods and services over distances, where the trucks are fueled or the boats are fueled by this high priced fuel. So it is hard, really. That it is hard for everybody.
All right. Once a leader, always a leader. You have talked about the incurred costs of, bringing these commodities and services closer to the people. I know you've had an engagement with some of these stakeholders, especially in the energy sector. And what is their take on the current status of things?
First of all, in the whole country, people ask why this. Yes, it can be like any other disaster. The problem is not in disasters occurring, but in how people respond to the disaster, how they prepare for the disaster. And in the case of the government, which is the caretaker of all people in the country, the government should have responded in a way of cushioning the Ugandans from the effect of the high costs of fuel, regardless of the causes, because the causes could be within or outside. It could be internal or external causes, like when people say the war in Ukraine, etc., etc., but those are the causes. But what is the response of the government of the Republic of Uganda? What we expected from the government included maybe giving subsidies or releasing stored fuel, in quote, because as a country you must have really a contingent plan. And the past governments of Uganda, particularly if you go to the government of His Excellency Field Marshal Idi Amin Dada, there were preparations for bulk storage of fuel in Jinja, in other places. Unfortunately, up to today, the government of the Republic of Uganda has not operationalized these reserves and has not even expanded them. Those reserves were for a population of that time, which was a smaller population, meaning that the government of the Republic of Uganda should have increased even the reserves, let alone functional, maintaining those which were in existence, and these are not happening. And this is where the problem is biting Uganda so hard. Now, people individually or collectively, home by home, region by region, have coping mechanisms. For us as people of West Nile, we have some opportunities in calamities, which sometimes help us across the border.
And what are such opportunities?
Yeah, the opportunities are that sometimes, because we are at the borders of two countries, Uganda versus South Sudan, Uganda versus DRC, when there is a problem of fuel in Uganda, possibly 1 or 2 liters or many liters can come in from the Congo.
The same case we saw Kenyans coming to Uganda via the border to get less
But the problem is sometimes you find also URA fighting with the boys, the OPEC boys. Sometimes it turns to be nasty. I would like also to urge the people of Uganda, particularly those working in URA, to read the situation. When they see things are hard, and they see OPEC boys, Arua boys, Koboko boys, Moyo boys, Ajumani boys getting something small from across the border. This is a method of survival. For us, we have some West Nile connections for survival in hard times, like these ones. So those ones must not be interrupted for now, really. This is my appeal to you.
I mean, we do have the former Commissioner of Customs here with us. Yes. Maybe he can address this particular conversation right now, because it's the reality on the ground for you with the people that you have talked about. So this means of survival, how best can URA help people cope but still remain within the boundaries of making sure that they don't get to negate their taxation?
Well, with due respect to my colleague here, the means of survival have to be legal, in whatever ways. In my opinion, if smuggling becomes a solution to rising prices, and then you are creating a much bigger problem. Because I know very well that my colleagues in that part of the region, together we have been advocating for example, a road through Nebi to Paida, to Goli. That road needs to be financed by government revenue. So, well, in my earlier years, the strategy was to contain that opportunity, because I know that if it is not contained, the consumption will not only be limited to Yumbe, Ajumani, you will find that fuel in Kampala.
Trickling it
and,
down, getting illegal substances into
you have
the city.
Illegal trade taking place. Of course, in that part of most, like all the borders around the country, we have cross-border trade, and then we have small-scale, trade across borders. Because some of these communities, really, you can't differentiate. I've been to Western Nile, to Arua. I know people who have gardens across, and they come. So when he goes and he comes with a kilo of bread, it wouldn't be a problem. However, now that we have DRC in the East African community, I think some of those opportunities will come to a slow end, because we are going to harmonize now taxation. DRC is going to implement the common external tariff, like the rest of us. So the advantage of having low taxes, but also as we bring peace in Eastern DRC, and you have governance returning, strict following up of laws, then you will find that those opportunities reduce. So they are not sustainable, Honorable Caps. We should look at what can be done. Before you came on the air, I was talking about the need for us to revamp some of those factories that are processing sunflower in that part of the region, and many others. So it's better to look at more sustainable ways than looking at survival means which are illegal, which can actually cost you life, but also which, if they are not contained, they can actually undermine the economy.
And from your standpoint of view as a legislator, what are some of those futuristic economic sustainable ways that we can adopt right now so that we can absorb the shock now, but also in the future to create a resilient economy for the country?
First of all, for me, I want to look at it broadly. The broader picture is that we have to deal with poverty, right? Once you deal with poverty, then someone has, you raise the per capita income of the person in Uganda, the ordinary person, to be able to survive and afford the basic means, so that he's not desperate. That's the discussion we should be having. What do we need to do as government, as parliament? Promote programs that are going to increase household income. And
I believe the parish model program is one of those.
Because once someone has is able to earn, 10,000 shillings, whatever period you are talking about, and from that he's able to buy a packet of salt at 1,000. He's able to buy soap. He's able to buy the basic commodities. Then they are not driven to the situation that is desperate. So for me, the broader discussion should be those boys, those OPEC boys whom in the previous years we had battles. How do you, what are the alternatives for them, the economic survival alternatives for them? And this is where now as legislators we have to engage our communities. If you have a myoga, money coming in, if you have the parish model coming in, money, it's not enough, but we need to deal with mindset. We need to organize these people, train them, to give them alternatives where they can make money. So they are out of desperate situation. If you don't deal with that broader issue, then you will keep discussing the smaller, what I would call operational.
How, while that is being applied on the national level, how do we bring it down to, to the locals and the wananchi and the one-on-one to be able to fight the domestic deflation that could be coming through?
I'm glad that you are with the background of having worked with URA at various levels. Now, in Moyo, we tried something with the URA. I acknowledge the fact that we need taxes, we need revenue to run our economy, to construct roads. But now, look at the situation at hand here. How do you balance the differences between necessity and the need to collect revenue? Now, if someone who comes from across the border, say with a motorcycle, let me use another example. Motorcycles, vehicles are cheaper when they are bought from Congo or from South Sudan and they're brought in Uganda. Now the question is, do you have did you pay the taxes necessary for all those things? When you are bringing something like this, do you have a registration done the number plates, etc. What we did with I suggested to the URA people, and the people who were in Moyo at that time accepted the plan, that you who has come in to Uganda with a commodity from South Sudan or Congo, say a vehicle, a motorcycle which needs registration, don't hide, don't run away, so that we cannot chase each other with the bullets. It's report, and you pay the taxes. Only what is given is a modality, some modalities of paying in such a way that this person with the little income is registered and can pay over a period of time, and until that person is given the number plate. It has worked for some time. Okay. And it removed the fight between URA and those boys. So URA should also have a plan of sensitization, of relationship building with those people instead of fighting with them all the time. Now, when you come to this issue of fuel, a fuel brought in 20-liter jerrycan should be considered also in the same way as a fuel brought in 1,000 liter or 1 million truck into the country. If you can talk to this person that, okay, where are you coming from with this fuel? Is it from Mombasa or from Ariwara? From Aru, Aruara, these are towns within the Congo, or from Yei or something Kajukeji. Now, for fuel of this magnitude, you are supposed to pay this amount of money. And again, it brings us to the same question of how do you make this small trader, this small boy here, Arua boy, OPEC boy, to pay? Yes. If you can agree, it can solve. You see, the problem is there is also a slogan that in necessity knows no law.
But if I could ask you, yes. You see, you are looking at only the aspect of taxation. Yes. But you know that importation of these commodities also is subject to other requirements. So if someone is bringing in kerosene mixed with adulterated fuel, and then you want to
go through the procedure.
It has to go through the procedure.
Yes.
So I think it is not easier to defend.
I think the bigger picture he's trying to say here is that have strategies whereby you actually get to sensitize and negotiate with people, concerned parties, so that they can be able to adapt to the changes that we're seeing, especially affecting economy. But also the other thing that is affecting the economy is the dire state of the continuous conversations between coffee and the correlation of it with Luwa Hospital, and the one figure within this very same dialogue, Miss Enrica Pinetti, seems to be giving us Ugandans a run for our money. In 2019, 1.3 trillion Ugandan shillings, Parliament approved it, funding for the specialized hospital, and that was through promissory notes, and that never came through. To date, we're just seeing cranes in the area code, and the WRTs, but the details of what is happening inside there is nothing. And to date, we had most recently a requisition coming through from the Ministry of Finance being presented and tabled before Parliament, requesting for about 348 billion shillings to be able to continue the works on the Luwa Hospital. I'll start with you, former Member of Parliament. What's your understanding of this deal, and why are we actually giving a new deal to someone who has not yet delivered on the Luwa Hospital deal?
First of all, I was in Parliament, and I was in the House and at that debate when this money was given to that company. The views I held in then are still the same views I hold today. That deal was immoral. It was wrong. First of all, this is an investor, in quotes. How does an investor come into our country, Uganda, without money to invest? And then you come and give the money to this foreign investor from here, and you take the money from the ordinary people of Uganda.
It's as good as doing the work yourself, if that means that you have the money as a country.
You have the money and you have the people. There are people also in Uganda here with the capabilities of building such a hospital. Why don't we give the money to them? That was a question we asked that time, and we still ask today. Secondly, we have come to understand that the current government of the Republic of Uganda is misusing this thing called foreign investors. You see Italians like this, you see Chinese, you see Indians, you think this is their investment. When it is not their investment. It is an investment of the people in government, and they are simply siphoning money out of the national coffers and giving it in the names of foreign investment, and it doesn't work out. This is just a fraud, a case of direct fraud. It is nothing else. And more so, they are playing with a very serious need, a need for a specialized hospital beyond the ones we have in Uganda, beyond Mulago, beyond Lacho, beyond in Zambia. All this is what you are playing up with. Ugandans are dying, and dying ugly, dying from abroad. If you say these hospitals are not enough, why don't you, for sure, build the needed hospitals here? This is the problem. Recently, people had a serious debate about this matter when we lost our dear Right Honorable Jacob Olanya, the Speaker of Parliament. It was this issue that let's have these hospitals here in Uganda. Now, money is released here, and you don't build. And then seamlessly, you come again to ask for more money. I thank my colleagues, my members of Parliament of the current Parliament, for refusing to give that money, and also for going to check the progress on the ground. Having found out that there is no progress, there should not be any debate of whether or not to give money for this construction. This deal should be cancelled. Now, people are debating about why should such a huge sum of money be given to such a person. Others have come up with various information, because when there is a debate like this, some facts may not be clear to the ordinary people, and therefore people who have information may come up with some information. The new information coming out is that this is a compensation for a deal of arms supply to Uganda. We provide money, we know our country must have guns.
Is this true, what is being said?
Why do you hide
this is an exchange deal for something else underlying in terms
in
of
the
arms,
budget,
ammunition?
we have the UPDF, we have the Uganda police.
Before you continue, Honorable, let's first clear these allegations that you presented.
Well, first of all, I really don't know. I cannot confirm what he says, because I like to deal with the facts. Whether it's a conversation or not, I don't know, and I cannot comment about it.
Okay.
What I can comment about is that, one, the record of the investor has a lot of questions in terms of delivery. That's a fact. Because if you have a hospital project, you have support from government, and 4 years down the line, there is no progress, definitely Ugandans have a right to ask so many questions, like we are asking, including Parliament. So that's number one. And for us as Parliament, what we want is now a proper value for money audit by government on that hospital project. What happened? I saw reasons being advanced by Minister of Finance about, rain, too much rain during COVID lockdown. But during lockdown, actually, construction sector boomed.
Yes.
There was a scarcity of steel. I have talked to friends in the industry. I know that the industry was booming. So the first thing is to undertake a value for money. What is it that happened? It should be able to be done to reassure Ugandans that government is not making mistakes that are deliberate. Because now if you see the accusations coming, they are casting government in bad light, and the government has an obligation to assure Ugandans what happened to the Rwanda hospital. So everyone else is concerned. We ask questions, including ourselves, including us members of Parliament, especially from the ruling party. Before we entertain this budget or the additional budget, because we have the appropriation powers as Parliament.
Yeah, and recently you also did have some members of Parliament coming through with a minority report talking about the legality and the economic viability of this particular loan.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying that we need to have a very, very, very detailed inquiry into what happened, to assure value for money. Now, coffee, Uganda is one of the top 10 producers of coffee in the world. And as a matter of fact, it is actually one of the few countries where coffee production is growing globally.
Rapidly.
The other countries are having challenges. Coffee involves about 12 million Ugandans. My own constituency, over the weekend, I was meeting coffee farmers who are launching fertilizers thanks to the government of Uganda. It's a very, very big success story. Even us, we went to school because of coffee. So when we are dealing with coffee, you are dealing with, if there is anything that unites Ugandans around themselves, it's coffee. And the coffee deal which came through, we've discussed. The Speaker of Parliament has directed a committee of trade to investigate the agreement. They are starting their work today. They will dig in and give us facts, and we'll debate on the floor of Parliament. And
when these facts do come through, what is your commitment as Member of Parliament to people of Sheba, but also to Uganda's representatives?
Of course, if the facts come out and there is no value in it, we are going to demand for government to cancel it.
Okay.
We cannot, have any
and we shall be expecting that to come through. But away from that conversation, we also do have the renewal of the Uganda-Rwanda relationship. And what does that mean for us as Uganda and also the East African region that seems to be now growing with the addition of the Democratic Republic of Congo? I'll start with you, Honorable Famu.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, it's a good thing that the relationship between Uganda and the Republic of Rwanda is improving. It should improve. It is long overdue. So yesterday's or this week's engagements and the coming of His Excellency Paul Kagame to Uganda is a good thing. So they should improve and make the borders open and the people move freely in the East African region, as we are one people and one East Africa. Now, we also need to go back to the drawing board of the causes, what caused this kind of bad blood and the relationship between Uganda and Rwanda going bad. We should go to this. Then we shall have really the economy of East Africa moving and people supporting each other here and there. When there's a problem in Rwanda, yes, even if we're in the same association, we can have problems as individual countries. If there's a problem in Rwanda, Rwandans should be able to come here and get help from here. When there's a problem here, Ugandans should be able to go to Rwanda and get help from there. Okay. So really, I see that alone, that issue of improving the relationship is a good thing. Okay,
Honorable Katashumba, what are the strategies we can deploy right now, given the fact that there's still some uncertainty? We having only borders open for commodity and service exchange, or are people able to freely move, and which people are allowed to, because much as Ugandans may be allowed to go into Rwanda, on the other side, you do have people in Rwanda saying that they still cannot come back home to where they had businesses prior to this whole border closure.
Well, first of all, I think I am very happy, and I want to congratulate the two governments for normalizing. You know, the process of normalizing might be still ongoing, but as someone who was in charge of borders when the border was closed, that time, I know what it meant, the impact it had, particularly for the business community, for people living across the borders on both sides. Definitely, it affected their economic welfare. So, His Excellency Paul Kagame's visit to Uganda is a very, very big step. And I would like to commend the efforts of General Mhozi, who actually went across and is credited for bringing this situation where it is currently, plus the president and many others who guided him. So for me, I think it is good. We have seen the traders starting to trade, the tourists starting to flock. I think what I would like to encourage government now with this visit, there should be a framework, a work plan that can be drawn quickly on many other bilateral issues, revive the Joint Permanent Commission between Uganda and Rwanda, discuss issues of trade, security, aviation. follow this momentum so that it does not.
All right.
But there's a problem.
Before you come in.
There's a problem in the way it has been reached.
Yes.
You see, governments are governments, they're institutions. And when you say you want to give credit to my brother, my OB, General Muhoozi, I say my OB because we went to the same school, St. Mary's College, Kisubi,
yes.
Where I passed through, I also passed through there. So there are moments where we can meet as OBs and chat. But the issue is, when there are relationship problems between countries, there must be the institutional framework followed to solve this problem.
Not necessarily.
Why don't we talk about the ministries of foreign affairs instead of talking of individuals, General Muhoozi? In what capacity? Is it as a brother,
speaking
a son,
actually
uncle,
of which the general has come out recently. He seems to be claiming a public space right now and indicating as though he could be now more interested in politics and more so the top seat of this country. What's your take on that?
Okay, first of all, he's welcome. He's as an individual person, like my brother, like me. Legally, there is no law that stops him, except that he is a serving officer now. For you to get engaged in a national politics or whatever politics outside the army, you must resign and move out of the army first. But the way General Muhoozi is conducting his politics and the military mix as he buried the rules of engagement. And this is bad for Uganda. Who among the living army officers of the UPDF has ever conducted himself in this way and has been allowed by the commander-in-chief?
That's a good question.
And why?
I just want to engage with you. We have been seeing over this whole birthday fracas, there's been what has been dubbed as the Muhoozi Army. And yet, most recently, when a young man came here, there's a National Unity Platform president, he came with his army, he was harassed, battered, people were imprisoned because of that kind of thing. And then we do have the first son coming through, the Muhoozi Army, and no one is saying anything about it. The contrast in application of principles of law.
First of all, let me say this, that there is where Ugandans, where we need to give credit that is due to the person we give it. There is no doubt that he engaged Rwanda, whether it should have been institutional or not. I know diplomatic relations, sometimes they rely on relationships. So if, to the extent that you can benefit out of initiatives like those, I don't think there is a problem generally, but I agree with you. We should strengthen our institutional capacity as a government to be able to deal with these bilateral issues beyond individuals, because they can be sustainable.
All right.
Now, the other politics, like he has said,
yes,
they are, I'm a firm believer of democracy. I think everybody should be given space to engage legally. I sometimes don't agree with some of the actions that are taken on the opposition when they want to, although when they become violent, then they attract the actions that follow. Otherwise, everybody can subject himself to people, and then the people will...
All right. Well, our time is fast spent. We'll continue this conversation on another day, Honorable. Thank you so much for watching Kickstarter. We now hand over to Mbite, who is at the taxi park, getting to understand the plight of Ugandans this morning.
In the city, the taxi park. Naye ensonga eri wano era ya byantambula.